Hello everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. Welcome back. And if you are new, thanks for checking out my channel. Please hit subscribe and stick around. Today we are continuing with the Reading Across Canada 2023 challenge. And I will share the book that I read for the month of March. And then I will give some recommendations for April and the province of Manitoba. The goal of this challenge is to basically get people reading more Canadian authors and books and Canadian literature, CanLit. And we do this each month. We focus on a different province or territory, and we have a prompt for anyone who wants to follow the prompts, but you definitely don't have to. So I will leave a link to my introductory video in the description box where you can learn all about it. And I will also leave links below to the tracker that I have that you can use to follow along, and I will also have the schedule and prompts below as well. So for the month of March, we are in Saskatchewan, and Saskatchewan is one of our prairie provinces. It is a landlocked province, and it's known for its very flat prairie landscape. It doesn't have any large metropolitan areas. The biggest city is over 300,000 people, but it does have boreal forests, badlands, and thousands of lakes. So the prompt for Saskatchewan is to read a biography, autobiography, or memoir by someone born or living in Saskatchewan. So I've already read my Saskatchewan pick, and I thought that I would share that with all of you. So I decided to pick up Call Me Indian by Fred Saskatchewan. This was easily a 5-star read for me. It was heartbreaking, and I think it was beautifully told. Fred Saskatchewan was born in Big River First Nation, which is near the village of Debden, which is north of Saskatoon and northwest of Prince Albert, or PA as locals call it. So if you are familiar with Saskatchewan, then you will have kind of an idea of the area. Fred begins his story with his ancestors and what life was like before first contact with white people. He shares stories of his family and what happens when he and his siblings are forcibly taken away to attend residential school. And Fred talks about his experience at residential school, the abuse that he and others experienced, and he also shares his love for hockey. So hockey in many ways becomes a saving grace for him. It's something that he loves, something that he's really good at. So in some ways, it was also a double-edged sword. So going back home in the summers and after residential school, Fred talks about what it was like to not really fit in at home. He had lost the language, and hockey kind of became more of a home for him. And hockey gave Fred a place to belong, but even then he experienced racism, and he would find solidarity with other non-white players. So for many others, Fred was a beacon of light, because if he could play hockey, and especially when he made it to the NHL, and the NHL is the National Hockey League, then there was hope for other Indigenous people and non-white people too. And I just found this story to be very honest. Fred shares his successes as well as his failures. He talks about his own trauma and how it affected him, his family, especially as a husband and father. And he shares what he observed with others who had similar experiences and how he tried to do better. There's also a connection to one of my favorite books and authors, Indian Horse by Richard Wagamese, who I've talked about many times on this channel, and I thought that the connection was kind of cool. So I do think that this is one of the best Indigenous memoirs that I've read in a long time. I would put it up there with Jessie Thistle's From the Ashes and Permanent Astonishment by Thompson Highway, which I recently read. So I highly recommend this one. Okay, so let's look ahead to April. In April, we traveled east to Manitoba, and the prompt for Manitoba is to read a book of poetry because April is Poetry Month here in Canada. So I'm going to give some recommendations for that. And, you know, if you're thinking, Jolene, I am not into poetry. If that's not your thing, then I will give some other examples and recommendations of authors born or living in Manitoba and books set in Manitoba for you to check out as well. So for people following the prompt, and if you're looking for poetry, there are a few poets that I'd like to bring to your attention. But this is, you know, definitely not an exhaustive list by any means. So first is an author that I have mentioned many times on my channel, and that is Joshua Whitehead. Joshua is a member of Peguis First Nation and has a poetry collection called Full Metal Indigiqueer. And I haven't had the chance to read this yet, but I have heard that some of these poems can be challenging, and I don't know if it's challenging because of the subject matter or if it's because of the writing style, or perhaps both, but I'm definitely willing to give them a try. And then another poet that I have read is Rosanna Deerchild and her poetry collection called Calling Down the Sky. This is fantastic. It is all about intergenerational trauma because of residential schools. And then she also has a collection called This is a Small Northern Town, which is basically about a Cree girl's experience of being from the north. And then the poetry collection that I think I'm going to pick up for myself in April, there's two of them, and they're by Katarina Vermette. One is called North End Love Songs, which is a collection of poems about Winnipeg's North End neighborhood. And then the other is called River Woman. And this is a collection about our relationship to nature. I love Vermette's writing, and I have been wanting to read her poetry for some time now. So I think that this is going to be my April reading choice. Now, if you're not into poetry, not a problem. These authors also have novels or essay collections or children's books, so they are definitely worth checking out. My favorite from Joshua Whitehead, which I forgot to grab, is Johnny Appleseed. It's also a Canada Reads winner. And I've also read his essay collection, Making Love with the Land. And then from Katarina Vermette, I would definitely recommend The Break and The Strangers. And I would actually recommend reading them in that order. So The Break first and then The Strangers. And be prepared because they are intense and heavy, but they are so worth a read. Katarina Vermette has a few children's books to check out too if you are looking for something like that. I mentioned Thompson Highway a little bit earlier, and Thompson Highway has a few novels and essays and his memoir. So I've read Permanent Astonishment, which was an excellent memoir that talks about his life to just after he leaves residential school. And then he has children's books as well, but on my shelf I still need to read Kiss of the Fur Queen, which is a novel about two brothers that go to residential school. And I also have his collection of essays called Laughing with the Trickster. These were his Massey Hall lectures. So Gabrielle Roy was also born in Manitoba in Winnipeg. And I've had The Tin Flute, which is probably her most well-known and I'd say her most famous work. That's been on my radar forever. So this is another option, but I think for me, I am going to wait on this one because this could also be used for Quebec in a couple of months. Carol Shields is one of Canada's most well-respected authors. She was American, but her and her husband lived in Manitoba for quite some time, and a few of her books are set there. So Republic of Love is about life in Winnipeg, but of course she has many other novels like The Stone Diaries, Unless, and many others. Casey Plett is another author born in Winnipeg, and I've only read the short story collection called A Dream of a Woman, and all of these stories focus on transgender women. But also on my radar is Little Fish, which was her debut novel, and A Safe Girl to Love, which is another short story collection if you're interested in those. The last author that I will suggest is Miriam Toews, who was also born in Manitoba, and I've read Fight Night, which is my favorite so far of hers, and I've also read A Complicated Kindness. And although I do have, what do I have here? Swing Low and All My Puny Sorrows. I have these on my shelf unread, but the one that I really want to read is Women Talking. And this has been turned into a film, and I am so intrigued by this story, so I will get to this eventually. So these are my recommendations for next month, and as I said, there are many, many more. I will leave links to resources below so you can see if there's anything else that fits for you as well. So please let me know, what you are reading for Saskatchewan for this month, during the month of March. And if you have any thoughts or even other recommendations that I didn't talk about for next month when we read for Manitoba. I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. As always, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget to make every day an adventure.